So here we are in this, my very first interview conversation with Matt Andrews in what I'm hoping to be a series of conversations with beautiful people who have so much depth, so much wisdom to share. And I'm really privileged today to be having this session with you, Matt. Really, really grateful that you were able to join me today.
Hey, I'm excited.
So when I first thought about doing this with Matt, I just knew that there was so many conversations that we need to have in the time that we're in right now. There's so much that we need to speak to and not hide from the thoughts that we're having about this time, because it's easy to fall into a spiral of doom and gloom when we don't really know what's going on. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us to just let what is happening out there be spoken to in a way where we can actually start to share the practical wisdom that is what we're all really needing right now, to ground ourselves so we can find a way to be with this time, because it's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to be chaotic and full of surprises. But how we respond can also be grounded and I dare say, joyful and expansive.
Yeah.
So that's the intention, and I'm open to see where our conversation takes us today. But I first want to introduce Matt to all the people who are going to be listening to this interview or conversation. I know Matt as a mentor, a dear mentor, and also a really transformative, supportive guide, really. And I think back, especially at the times when I have found myself in the deep end, struggling to stay afloat, I have had the most profound guidance from Matt, and in terms of really being okay with where I was, and actually feeling that actually this is part of the process. There was nothing to fear. But equally, the times where I've had to actually take that big plunge, take that big scary move, your support and guidance, and particularly in inspiring me to really own my power and step out there and be it in my most expansive self, has been so transformative. So I'm really grateful for your support, Matt, and I'm also deeply grateful for the support that you offer, this wonderful community that you have, and your generosity in it, and really privileged to have you in my life. So very, very grateful for that.
Thank you. I'll try not to blush. No, that's really pleasing to hear, because that's our intent, right? I'm no friggin' guru or master or anything special at all. I'm just operating from an intent to empower people to be themselves. And really, it's very self-serving for myself. This is me doing what feels purposeful for me, and giving myself an opportunity to step out and push my bounds. Because, to be completely honest, I'm scared of influencing people. I'm scared of telling people to go for it. What if it's a mistake? What if they're going to have a bad experience? What if they're not going to appreciate the guidance that I give them? It's a two-way street, and for me, I'm no expert. That's the thing. A lot of people are very quick to want to place their trust in me because I've put on the hat of being a facilitator. But for me, it's my own growth that I'm living, and I'm trusting spirit as much as anything is going to guide the two of us. It's a relationship. between myself and individual clients and myself and the collective of clients who I'm fortunate enough to have attracted to me through basically me choosing to walk my own talk and get out there and express myself as authentically as I can to attract people who like who I be, as myself. So it's an ongoing evolution, you know. I'm learning every step of the way. I'm learning right now that I'm learning how to cope with your appreciation here in a form of public that makes me feel a little uncomfortable. That can I really own up to your accolades for the support that I've given you, even though on a deeper level it's incredibly satisfying for me to hear that I'm making a positive influence in your life and then consequently in the lives of the people that you touch.
Absolutely. Yeah, Matt. And I think what's so powerful about your facilitation is that humility that you bring, you know, in your not knowing, right? In your not knowing, yet you're knowing. There is that knowing in the not knowing, which is so,
Surrender to not knowing,
yeah.
to not needing to know, to not needing to intellectually be in charge of a process that's beyond us as humans. Just playing my role. My physicality, my personality is playing a role here.
Mm. And it's and I think that's the key right now, you know, as we step into the time that we're in, to actually come to know what our role is. And so much of that role is about being who we are, like actually really settling into the truth of who we are, not trying to glamorize, you know, trying to attach ourselves to any particular type of position or role, but that, like, who are you right now? That's what you've got to own up to and be.
Yeah. Accept more than anything.
Say that again.
You have to accept it. It's through the acceptance that you can be it. We can't be what we're not willing to accept. So don't try too hard to be something. Just accept what you be. And that in itself is requires a degree of effort, requires a degree of intention and consistency in showing up to self-acceptance, because we've all plagued with our own self-doubts and self-judgments. That's always going to be part of it, you know. Self-acceptance is not being devoid of doubts any more than confidence is devoid of doubts and fears and concerns. You know, it's a living process of seeing those fears and doubts and choosing to know that you're more than that these influences that are presenting themselves right now in your psyche or your emotionality is really just fragments of energy left over from your past that are coming up basically to clear, to release, to be seen for what they are. You know, they may have a degree of importance due to a situation that you're currently experiencing, e.g., I've been triggered by the current experience to now feel doubtful or scared or judgmental on myself, guilty within myself, whatever it might be. But if you can bring the awareness and pause for that breath where you can remember, oh yeah, this is just my past. This is just my programming. This is just my parents' words. This is just something that happened in another lifetime that I have no awareness, you know, conscious living memory of, but there it is. And I've seen it time and time again. And the more that I can relax into that and accept that that's okay, and therefore accept who I'm being right now with those doubts, with those fears, with those inadequacies, the more that I allow myself to show up and step into the next moment, or the current moment, really, with a deeper, authentic confidence in the being that I be, beyond my ability to even comprehend who I be.
And that's incredible and so powerful, yet so very difficult, right? Because our impulse is to resist it. Our impulse is to fight the truth of who we are, and because we're trying to be this thing for others, trying to fit in, trying to survive. So we battle against surrendering to who we actually, who we are naturally, just to allow ourselves that movement into being. Like, if I think about how life is right now for me, in terms of, okay, there's so much shifting, so much changing, and here we are in Auckland. We've been in lockdown for so long. I don't even know how long, and having to know who I am in my parenting in a completely new way. Because if I continue to step in my role as mother in the old way, it's just not going to work. We're facing this huge shift in our relationships with everything, that fighting against just the nature of my being, which holds the truth and wisdom in terms of how to respond, right? It's that resistance that will make the parenting role harder in the times that we're in. Hope I'm making sense there.
Yeah.
And so I suppose the question then is, how can we actually allow ourselves to see the times that we're in as an opportunity to come into relationship with the truth of who we are, rather than to resist this and hang on to this old version of who we thought we were.
Yeah. I think practically it all has to start with awareness. And I think it's really beneficial for us to be aware that we have been programmed to fight. It's not our true nature to fight against life. If you think back generations when we lived much more in harmony with nature, and we lived a much more simplistic life of survival, we went with what was available. We took the opportunities that were there, and we avoided the problems that were arising very naturally. But over the last however long, right, we've been programmed, educated into the shoulds, educated into how we are supposed to be in the world, what success looks like. And that has influenced a lot of our instinctive feelings about what survival is, even, right? Survival no longer is about getting adequate food and shelter, right? Survival has become much more of a complex issue for us as a personality, right? So we are dancing with far more narrative, really, far more story to what we should do, what we have to do, what we're supposed to do in order to be successful. And that has removed us much, because we're now so cerebral around this. We're so cognitive about trying to manufacture all of what we've been trained to do, much of which of our training, of course, is conflictual and contradictory. So we've got all of these complex problems going on in our heads, trying to work out how to prioritize what we should do. I've been told by my mother I should do this. I've been told by my teacher I should do this. I've been told by my husband or my ex I should do this. I've been told by my child I should do this right now. Where is the importance? How do I hierarchy? How do I create priority on being successful right now? It's an impossible equation, of course, and that's why people are so overwhelmed, and people are turning to various distraction techniques, whether it be, alcohol or recreational drugs or prescription drugs or mindlessly watching Netflix or anything else, or going gung-ho into exercise, which, on the outsides is quite a, what we might think of as a virtuous distraction, but nonetheless, it is basically a coping mechanism for feeling overwhelmed with trying to get the world right, trying to get our lives right, trying to be successful in ways that is almost impossible to be successful based on this education that we've somehow either received or inherited in many ways, right? Because this has been going on for lifetimes now. We've been collecting all of this residual stress. So the first thing, getting back to your question, which is I've almost forgotten, but the practical steps, right, in navigating these times, these very fluid, changing times, right? Because I have to understand a lot of the education that we received decades ago was for a different world where paths to success were much more stable. You did get a job, and you earned some money, and you had enough money to buy a house, and you met a partner, and you decided to have a family, and this all looked a lot more stable than it does today. Today, I think many people are just realizing how unstable our whole financial situation is, how unstable our whole social society is, and how quickly people are turning, and how polarized and intense everything has become in terms of a melting pot and people's reactions and responses. And many of us feel that we're walking on eggshells now. We really don't feel like we have much stability in the world, which is alarming for someone who is trying to get it right and survive and follow a path that's been laid out before them, but is also incredibly exciting for the soul that is desiring just to be in the world and to break free of the constraints of this success path, whatever it is for you, whatever you've been educated into, whether you're a spiritual person trying to succeed at enlightenment, or whether you're a materialistic person trying to succeed at gaining wealth, or whether you're a social person trying to succeed at, finding status and appreciation from those around you. Of course, we have a mix of all of those within most of us. And much more, right? Trying to be healthy, trying to be vibrant in the world, trying to, live up to all of these different narratives. So first of all, we have to be aware that it's an impossible task that we've inherited. And so from that awareness, we can create some space and relax out of trying so hard. We can relax out of the stress of thinking that we are failing at following the path that we've been educated into, so that we can take that breath and come back to what is really important for me as a deeper soul being right now. Is it important that I am the perfect parent right now? Or is it important that I have a relationship with a child who's in front of me right now? And of course, it's not simple, and there's no absolutes. Of course, we have to parent in a way that's going to equip our child as best we can for a very interesting, changing landscape of potentials that none of us are sure about. But ultimately, if we can relax more into trusting who we be as an energy, as a being, as a soul, as an aspect of the divine here on the planet, then intuitively, instinctively, we are guided in ways that flow through into that outcome, being much more successful rather than trying to do it intellectually through the programs that we have been left with. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as having the awareness, oh, this is just all programs, I can let that go. Right? If we could just let go of all of our programs and become the heart-centered individual that we wish to be in the world, acting creatively and expressively as an emanation of our soul beingness, then this would not be nearly so challenging. The truth is these programs are embedded, and we're having to dance with them. Programs from this lifetime, programs from other lifetimes, fragments of pain and trauma all influence, our ability to be present. We get triggered very easily, both emotionally and intellectually, into various reactions that then take us off course, take us out of our beingness, push us back into the past, project us into the future. So we have to be aware of that as well. And be an allowance that this is not an easy process. So we're aware that we've set ourselves an impossible tasks. We're also aware that navigating this pathway right now into relaxation is also not easy. And so compassion is really beneficial. And then it comes down to practical measures, is how can I best relax? How can I take time and space for myself consistently throughout my day, that the stress response is not creating the fertile ground for triggered reactions to take me completely out of my presence. And for me, that's about having mechanisms in place, reminders in place to stop and breathe and take some breaths habitually throughout my day, whether I think I'm stressed or not. The more often I can just go, oh yeah, it's this time of the day, or I'm between sessions right now. Now's the time to ground. Now's the time to be present. Now's the time just to check in with myself and see what level of stress or what level of distraction, preoccupation I'm carrying right now, and choose to let that go and choose to come back to who I'm intending to be on the planet right now.
Mm. There's so much wisdom there, Matt. I'm just blown away by that invitation that you just presented. How can I just be present to this moment, to be in relationship with my child, rather than this idea that I need to be a certain way to meet these old success measures around what parenting meant, right? That invitation just to be present is just so, it opens up a whole new experience, and who knows where that can lead to, really. Yeah. When we can actually bring presence to that moment, right? And as you said, the more we can relax, allow ourselves to relax. Yet that too is a huge challenge because of the programming that is associated with how we should be, and relaxing is considered something you don't do it until you're on holiday.
Yeah, till you've succeeded, till you've made it.
Till you've made it. That's right, exactly. So so this is really cool, because it's bringing us to this point in this discussion where I really want to speak about this is exactly what's happening out there in the collective right now, right? We know that the world is changing so much, and in the spiritual community, we refer to this as we're moving from 3D to 5D and beyond. We're stepping into new earth. Okay, whatever way we use to label what's going on, we know that this shift is actually this wonderful. It is wonderful, because we are actually allowing what is no longer like this old system, that the old success measures that we used to aspire to is now coming to an end. It's like in fact, it's finished. It's, at least I'd like to think, it's over. That's just done. And we're not in the new yet. We don't quite know how this new way of being looks like, or at least we're starting to intuitively feel into that.
Yeah.
So if we were to look at what's happening out there in the collective, it's easy to say that we are in that transition, right? In the void, in the dark night of the soul. The world is humanity is going through the dark night of the soul, because we are transitioning from the old to the new, but it's not quite there. So we're in that cocoon. I'm just throwing in all these different metaphors here just to give us context. We're dealing with a time where we do not know what this new is. And if we don't know that we're in this cocoon transforming in a major way, then it's easy for us to want to scramble and try and grab onto the past, right? Which is what's really happening with people trying to go back to life as it was, or measures that are coming in that don't make any sense. It's just like, what? And so I guess the question here is, how can we, okay, there are going to be people who are just not going to be interested in exploring this concept of the world as we know it is no longer. It's done, right? There's this new way of being that's coming in. We're bringing this in. It's no one's doing this for us. It's coming in through us, through who we be, right? And we know there's going to be there's a whole lot of people who are not buying into that narrative, and that's the role they play. They play that role so that we can get clearer about our role, which is to start being what this new world could be.
Yeah.
So where was my question in that?
Wow.
Yeah, my question in that would be, How do we then stand in this knowing that there is a new way to respond and not get caught up in reacting in the old world, in the old way? Because then we're just going back to that old stuff, which isn't serving us, right?
Yeah. So we choose it. We choose it and we choose it and we choose it and we consistently keep choosing it with both awareness that it's hard and compassion that it's hard, and allow ourselves to progress as best we can. Where am I going with that? There's so many ways I could go right now. You know, the allure of what seems like stability in the old is very, very powerful in times of chaos. We're in, you know, this, as you were stating, various metaphors, this progression basically from what we have been, which was basically a pyramidical, you know, structural society where the rulers are at the top and there's various layers of people have very, you know, power down to the minions at the bottom. That's falling away. We're falling away. We're moving into a society that's more structured like a spiral. We're in circular connection, which is continually expanding or contracting, depending on which way we're choosing to move on the spiral. That's the way we're moving. There is no head to the table anymore. There's no pinnacle to a spiral. It's infinite in both directions. And we get to choose, you know, whether we're playing an expansive role on the spiral or whether we're playing a contractive role on the spiral. And of course, many of us will oscillate from time to time and in different genres. And it's not just a single spiral, it's a multiverse of spirals interconnected in various ways. So, you know, the brain, you know, very easily can understand a pyramid, but can't even really understand how society can function in an interconnectedness of spirals. But that's our challenge. So how do we usher in, how do we advocate for something that we can't describe?
Yeah.
How do we do that to the people who want to go back to the pyramid, who are desperately clinging to the pyramid because in the pyramid they trust, in the pyramid they knew. They might not have particularly enjoyed their station in the pyramid. Of course, some did because they were closer to the top, but many just enjoyed the fact that they knew that if they played their role, if they followed the rules, then they could pretty much predict how life was going to go for them. You know, if you follow the rules look after you. It's a simple promise that simple people really enjoy. And there's nothing wrong with being simple. I think there's a lot to be said for simple, and we've overcomplicated a lot of things in terms of, you know, how we should progress right now. And ultimately, it is very simple. We have to relax into trusting energies that are more expansive than our little mind, than our little ego, are influencing us right now. And our job is to relax into being that. But in relaxing into being it is also a call for us to stand up in confidence and take a risk, right? Relaxation into being isn't an inertia where we sort of become a jellyfish and allow the current just to take us, right? Going with the flow is not so an inert experience. Yes, we have to park our brain a little bit. Yes, we have to stop worrying about trying to control how things are happening, but we do need to really align with and get quite devoted to our intention and be willing to take what feels like risky steps to align with what we intend in our doingness, in our expression of our being, right? We have to prioritize time to relax into being and to really coming to know who we be, even if that's beyond our intellect. And then we have to choose courageously to step into doing things that feel aligned with our being, even though we can't be sure, we can't cognate how this is going to turn out. So I'm feeling to do something, I'm inspired to do something, but my brain is freaking out because I haven't done this before. There's no real success path that I'm following. I'm not following the guidance from any particular guru or experienced person saying, yes, you just do this, and it turns out really great. I'm beyond that now. I'm having to have faith and trust in who I be and my own instinct or inspiration or sense that wants to explore something beyond what I can be sure of. And so again, compassion and are willing to fail, right? We have to be willing to try things and not have the outcome that our brain is sort of indicating would measure a successful outcome. But the point is, there is no fail in reality. If we're trying to do, if we're exploring doing something, then the very mere fact that we've stepped out of being controlled by the stability that the pyramid offers, right? Just following the rules and doing what you've been told to do and doing what worked for generations and trying something new, trying a new expression of ourselves, that is already a huge victory, because we are ushering in a willingness to move out of the 3D or the controlling mechanism, the pyramid, the matrix, whatever you want to call it, where we thought we had a level of security, stability. It was all very delusional, but practically, if we followed the rules, then we were much more likely to have experiences that we could predict. And our mind, our little ego, loves predictability above everything else. It doesn't even matter if it turns out uncomfortably. If we could predict it was going that way, we'd much rather choose that than shoot for the stars and have a joyful outcome. Potentially, though, we don't know what's going to happen. So it could be disastrous as far as our little mind's concerned. But if we stick with the devil we know, then at least we know. And knowing has been prioritized in this epoch of time that has been quite dark and mentally controlled, the pyramid structure. That's now coming to an end, right? The divine feminine's rushing in. We're being inspired to connect more with our heart and to feel our way, to go with the flow, to get in that flow state in the world, and to, not emphasize so much the cognitive, the predictability. It's not that we're going to park our brains forever and not think about anything evermore, or not, be rational or logical. Logic still has a great role to play here, but we just have to break out of the programming around, basically following old set pathways that was, the pyramid structure to eke our way up the ladder.
Well, this is it. This is really the biggest challenge, because why would anyone want to give up that safety for the unknown? Why would we even want to advocate for the unknown when the ego has assured us that we will stay safe and we will continue to delight in the pleasures of this pyramid as it has offered us. So this particular, the why, right? The why even let go of the pyramid is the big deal here, because if we aren't feeling into the beautiful potential of what we're stepping out of and into this unknown, if we don't feel that beautiful joy that is calling forth this new way of living, and if we're not even convinced that this joy is going to far outweigh, in fact, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't even compare, because we're not in a space of comparison. We're stepping into something so unknown that it really is the inspiration from within that's going to take us, right? That movement toward, so as what you were saying just now. Otherwise, we're just like a jellyfish, just mindlessly floating and not saying that that's what jellyfish do. They're just so beautiful, magnificent creatures, but so how, and is that really even something that we need to speak to, the why it's time to let go of the pyramid, if we can't give any guarantee or any kind of clarity on what this new world is, even though you and I feel it in our bones, right?
Yeah. So that's it. I think the why is very important, and I think the process of helping to get more people on sort of aligned with this potential, with what is exciting for me and you, is to help them have an experience where they can feel it too. So you know, why would we let go of something that assures our security as a biological being, right?
Mm.
It's when we realize that our security is so much bigger than the life, this body, right? It's when we've had experiences in our meditation or in our experience in moments of clarity where we understand that we are so much more than the physical experience here on the planet, and that clinging to the assuredness of survival is not what it's about. You know, it has no importance to us in a deeper way. All right, I don't care if I die tomorrow. I really don't. I have things, you know, that I'd like to achieve while I'm still living and breathing. But as a being now, I can confidently say, and I touch wood, I haven't had a near-death experience or anything like that, but I feel so much freedom that I don't need to survive. Yeah. Right. And the irony of that is that now I'm so much more alive than I've ever been. Right now, I'm so much more willing to take risks and to actually live and to actually partake in the joy that's available, because I'm no longer clinging to trying to survive. It's not that important anymore, because I have a deep, more than faith, through experiential understanding of who I be, that's beyond this biology, that's beyond this personality even. And I understand that I'm not going to lose anything in the death of this physical body. In fact, I'm going to gain more freedom in many ways, because the narratives will somewhat drop away, and the clinging to the sensual pleasures will fall away to a degree, not completely, right, in death, but to a degree. So the point is, the majority of the population are still 100%, if not more, aligned with their physical vessel and their mentality and emotionality being all there is. And anything that threatens their survival threatens their very existence. This is the point. And so helping people come to an understanding that their existence is so much more than their physical survival is key to allowing them, inspiring them to go with their heart and to leave behind the old paradigm and into something that feels so much more alive, so much more joyful, so much more exciting, so much more satisfying in so many ways.
Absolutely. And I'm reminded of that time when you speak about that freedom, Matt, that I remember that time where you had, in a session that we were having, where you had, what would the word be? That moment where you told me you own your fire and you go out there and be that fire. And the risk that I was going to take, it was a moment of me stepping out to do this thing in a way where it was extremely, like the risk that I was taking was unbelievable. But now, even in reflecting that, it's like, what risk? That was just the joy. It was, wow, I've just opened up my life in a way where I don't ever want to go back to how it was. This is who I am now. Yeah. I've tasted the joy of that, stepping through that fear of that what perceived risk is.
The illusion, right? The illusion of what was dangerous.
Yeah.
But it's a strong illusion. We've been programmed into it, and we could dive into the conspiracies that have left many of us very spiritual, highly evolved beings of light so, disempowered on this planet through these fear-based mechanisms that are the programs that are running so forcefully in us. But, maybe that's another conversation. But, trust, please, everyone who's listening to this, if you are, feeling so afraid of showing up as yourself, there is a reason for that. It's not your own failing. Many of us have shown up in other lifetimes and been well and truly persecuted, and torturously programmed, if you like, with these vibrations, you know, that just make it seem so dangerous to show ourselves, so dangerous to step into and own our own fire, own our passion, to go for what we desire. It has just been made in some ways within inside ourselves just such a wrong thing to do, right? It just feels so against what our little ego is telling us to do in order to keep our head down, stay in the flock and survive, right? Play our role, accept our tier on the pyramid and operate within that, because that's where survival is much more guaranteed, right?
Yeah, that's you know, that T-shirt you're wearing, Matt. Could you just stand up and soul rebel gangster, right?
Yeah, spiritual
You know,
gangster, soul rebel.
yeah, that's the vibration. We want to feel into that soul rebel gangster that we are. And
Yeah.
this is not about, like, as you had alluded to in the start, this is not about going into that fighting energy. It's got nothing to do with that. This is about this freedom to express yourself in a way that is uninhibited and fully expressed, and in that full expression there is nothing but love. There is this absolute beautiful love coming through, which can be wrathful, can be compassionate, can be absolutely creative. It's the moment where what is needing to be expressed is fully expressed, and you can always guarantee that it will be perfect.
Yeah. Although it might be uncomfortable for you or for others, right? There's this horrible, what's the right word? Resistance to pain on this planet. We have been one of the biggest conspiracies, I think, like we can talk about a lot of conspiracies that have gone down, but one of the biggest conspiracies is making humanity so scared of this thing called pain. So you're making pain so wrong that if you're feeling pain, you have to fix something, that it's not right. Something's gone wrong if you're experiencing discomfort. And it is just not the truth. It's not the truth. Discomfort is always going to be part of this evolution as we leave behind the past. Discomfort doesn't need to be suffering. Discomfort doesn't need to be any detraction from you being your most expansive, joyful experience of the light, right? I can be fully embraced with a creative moment, with a heartfelt moment, and my left knee can be hurting. You know, it doesn't need, I can take my awareness to my left knee and detract from the situation or not. I can be aware of it without identifying with it. It just is what it is. It's a discomfort, right? We label it as pain and then we make it wrong, and then it grabs our attention and then we focus on it. And then ironically, the pain gets worse. And then we try all sorts of methods to try and figure out what's wrong with it and then fix it. That's how we've been trained to do the world. And the left knee is a very simplified version of pain, right? Most of it is an emotional disconnection pain that we are feeling. And the pathway of reconnecting is to own that pain, to feel it and to nurture it and to love it gracefully and gratefully, right? With appreciation into completion as our connection becomes more and more tangible, right? So we have to understand that this pathway of reintegration, this pathway of evolution is going to be painful. This pathway of choosing to forge new ways of relating to both ourselves and others in our lives is going to be painful for us and for others. And we have to really, in order to successfully advocate for the world that we desire, we have to find a more empowered relationship with this thing called pain and discomfort. We just have to, because as long as people are adverse to pain, they are always going to go back to the pyramid. And even though there's pain in the pyramid, right, it's a known quantity. And the fear of what could be on the other side of letting go of our coping mechanisms and actually coming to terms with what we are coping from, right? Our past that has felt so disconnected and so atrocious in so many ways. It seems too overwhelming to even contemplate. But it's not. That's just that these are just programs that have been put in our field that keep us from walking this path into reintegration, into acceptance and self-acceptance and self-love. You can't achieve self-love if you're not willing to feel the pain that's residing within you, that you've been left with.
Absolutely. I think this is so important. And I'm so pleased you've brought the discussion to this place, because this is, coming back to what we said in the start. It's about being who we are, and who we are includes all those experiences of pain that we've experienced. It includes it. It's not about turning away from it. We can no longer abandon ourselves, right? This is about really turning toward those painful points, painful parts, and really being with it and being okay with it. And I think I really believe that single practice of actually sitting with our pain and being okay with it and actually welcoming it is one of the most powerful transformative practices. And I use an example, actually. Which example can I use? Because there's been so many. Like if the last 3 months has flushed up all the pain that I can possibly think about, that and just as I think, okay, I think I'm getting used to turning toward my pain and really, being with it and welcoming it and reintegrating it, as you say, to the wholeness of myself. And then there will be more, just as I think I've got one depth of pain, the next level arise. And this pain can take different shapes, right? It takes the form of the triggers that we are feeling at the moment. So rather than to run away from the trigger, this person has done this to me, I'm never talking to that person again, I'm running away. Rather than actually sitting with this pain that has been triggered, right? The actual experience. Because until we do that, we're going to just continue to have these triggering experiences. So I personally believe that this exercise where we actually welcome pain, and I think just to quote Matt Kahn, he speaks about it like welcoming it as though they are a guest in your Airbnb accommodation. How can I serve you better? How can I fully be here in your service? That's how we meet our pain without turning away. I think that's just so powerful.
Yeah. And especially if we can choose to believe that we don't need to complete any of this process before we can live a purposeful, happy, expansive, joyful, creative life. Because so many people get caught into these practices with the idea that once I have mastered, once I have completed, once I've got rid of there'll be some tipping point and then life will be easy. It's a choice, right? We live our life now, and we must be willing to work with these processes of meeting our pain and progressing through and finding deeper acceptance for ourselves, and meeting our, pain comes up for many of us as shame and not good enough and, not belonging. I don't belong here. And that's a huge pain to carry. And you have to understand that much of this not belonging that we feel is programmed. You do belong here. There's no mistake. You haven't come to the wrong planet. You're just carrying memories from the past where dark beings basically told you don't belong here. And you believe them because they were, inflicting so much physical and mental and emotional torture on you at the time that these beliefs went very deep. We were opened up in all sorts of satanic freaking rituals to disempower us for lifetimes to come, and I'm not trying to make you all feel like the victim of that and to hate darkness or anything. They're just playing their role. They're just doing, it's been our great honor to experience that level of atrocity so that we can experience the satisfaction in overcoming it and arising above it, and healing from it has all been part of our growth as an individuation of God source universe, having an experience here in physicality. There's nothing wrong that has happened in our past, I talk a lot about release, and a lot of people misunderstand what I say when I, if you breathe into the pain and then just allow it to release, they're thinking that the pain is supposed to go away. But all I'm really talking about is when I say release, is release your resistance to the pain, release your identification as the pain is separate to you, right? It's releasing the boundaries and the borders and the identifications and the hierarchy, even the release the story about the pain, right? So the integration naturally occurs. It's difficult. It's not easy because pain's uncomfortable to feel in all forms.
It's so cool, though. It's so cool. As you're saying this, I can see how, the mess that we're facing in the world today, this crazy, crazy world that's throwing all these ridiculous measures at us and changes at us, rather than to get caught up in it, to allow the pain that it is in creating or triggering in us as the opportunity for us to really be with this, right?
Yeah.
So we are actually using this time in a healing.
Yeah, it is the healing of society right now, which is healing for us all individually and for society as a whole. It seems like everything's going wrong. It seems like darkness has got, more powerful, but it's not. Darkness is right now, this dark authoritarian top of the pyramid agenda has got so desperate that they are losing control of this planet, that they are throwing every last ditch effort to try and prolong their rule here on this planet. But it's, as you heard, I spoke a couple of days ago about, some people think that it's inevitable that the light has won. And in many ways, I agree. But in other ways, I caution against thinking that it's a done deal and that we should all just rest on our laurels and hide down while the storm blows over. And then we can re-emerge and live in a happy, joyful life after everything's been fixed up and cleaned away. We are the ones who are fixing up and cleaning away. And so it's important to have faith that the light is flooding back onto the planet, for it surely is. But it's also important for us to recognize that we are the ones to use that light to advocate successfully and in an empowered way, expansively, to advocate for that light, forming new forms of society, and that it's not enough to just kind of let the light clean away the darkness. We have to embody that light and walk in the planet with authentic confidence and be it, to embody it and to be it out there in the world. And that might mean protesting, it might mean shouting from rooftops, it might be doing things that are seen as controversial, bold, or it might be that we can do it more subversively. But nonetheless, we have to engage in this process, and it's not enough to just sit at home and wait it out.
I think that's perfect what you're saying, Matt. Like we each have a role here to embody this light and to express it in the way that is authentic for us. If going out and protesting on the street is how you feel, this is how the light is being expressed, and that's what you do. If your expression of that light is to be done in a more subtle way, maybe a meditation circle and whatever way it is, as long as we are consciously choosing this new consciousness that is available to us now to have a way to express itself rather than to go passive. So I really want to thank you for challenging us the other day with that thought. Hey, it's not a guarantee. We've got to do our part here. Yeah. We can't just sit back and pretend that something out there is going to come and make this happen. It is up to us. And we need to get this kick up our asses to actually really participate, to actually take that, to know that beacon of light is in us, and it's our role and our absolute destiny to express it.
That's right. Our love, to express from love rather than to be incapacitated by fear. Yeah. Or be provoked into fearfully fighting. right? We don't want to be provoked into fearfully fighting. We don't want to be provoked into fearfully hiding. We want to lovingly take action, whichever that looks like, into expressing our light on the planet. This is a time to really advocate for what we truly feel in our hearts is the best way forward, and not to be overly influenced by fear in either direction, whether you are complying from fear or whether you are disobeying from fear. It's fear either way.
Yeah.
And it's time to let love reign supreme. It's time to really advocate for that. And it's not an easy path, because we're always going to have influences of fear interwoven through our loving intent. We're always going to, nothing is ever 100% either way. We have to be okay with the fact that fear is going to influence our behavior, and not to be down on ourselves, but to also maintain awareness of that and to consciously choose to align with as much as possible with the love that's wanting to express through us, even though it's going to be tainted by various layers of fear, resistance, and limitation left over from our past, being triggered in the now moment by various agendas playing out in situations that we find ourselves facing.
How else are we to learn about love, right? It comes through fear, because that is the opposite vibration of fear is love. Mm-hmm. And so we thank fear. We thank the fearful thoughts that are arising, either from wanting to comply or wanting to rebel, because that is offering us this new opportunity to actually explore what love is, because that's the opposite of fear. So yeah, it's playing its role, you know. It's and we can thank the dark forces for pushing us to really claim this this depth of love that we are, because without them playing their role, we're going to just be happily stuck in that pyramid thinking that that's life, right? So it's everyone's playing their role. I think it's just wonderful. It's horrible, it's uncomfortable, it's grand, and it all comes down to us actually really stepping up courageously, and that's where facilitators like you, Matt, who support people to own that courage, to accept the discomfort in that courage, to be so humble and transparent about it. No one's walking around always feeling the courage. We're shaking in our boots all the time, right?
Courage is the ability to step past the fear, not the absence of fear. That's the thing, right? Courage is this. Courage, it comes from the French, or it comes from the Latin before the French, but it's of the heart. That's what it is. It's to operate from your heart rather than from your head. The head is still there. The fear and the doubts are still there. And they should be there, because quite often those fears and those doubts have a degree of reality, have a degree of warning for us, can prepare us to deal with what's going to arise when we choose to do what we do. Sometimes they're completely fictitious, but generally there is a degree of reason for having those fears and doubts, but they don't need to completely overrule us, right?
No, they don't. And equally, I was just going to say something, and that thought's gone.
Awesome.
That's lost. That's all right. That's
part and parcel.
Absolutely. So as we step into, I think we're coming to, we might have been on this call now for an hour. I'm not sure. I wasn't looking at the time. So we probably want to wrap it up. This is the point I wanted to say. It doesn't matter what we choose to do in terms of how we respond in any situation, right? It doesn't matter. Like, I know a lot of people are thinking, how should I respond about someone forcing me to wear a mask, or someone, whatever the thing is, right? It really doesn't matter what it is that you choose to do, as long as you are choosing it from a place of awareness and appreciation of how much fear can affect that choice, and the opportunity for that to transcend to love, to lovingly make that choice, whatever that choice is. And we can't get it wrong. I think I'm noticing for myself, like every time I think, as a light worker, as a way shower, I should have said that. I should have done that. And this goes back to what you said in the very start, the should haves, that's just the old way. The should haves come from that old success measure.
Yes.
We are standing in this beautiful new time where magic happens instantaneously in the moment. It happens as and when we are choosing from a place of love. And we don't know what it is, but when we can actually sit and be that so loving to ourselves for the choice that we're making, rather than judging the choice that we've made. That's where the magic appears.
Exactly. And understanding that it's a continual evolution. So I like to change when I say, oh, I should have, I say, I could have, and maybe perhaps next time I will say, right? Because we always get a chance to go back and have another experience. So just because you found comfort and you're operating from love now and choosing to operate in the world in a certain way doesn't mean that that's what you should do tomorrow. I think it's important that we recognize that we do our best in the moment and we have to be accepting of that. But that doesn't mean we just, oh, that's it. I'm going to wear a mask, but I'm going to do it with love because I can't cope with conflict and it's not loving for me to put myself in conflictual experiences. You may find you get to a point of time where you think, I think this is an opportunity for me to step past my fear of conflict into an opportunity to express myself here in disobeying the mask. As an example, this is just an example, right?
Yeah.
Because we get this chance to evolve. And I'm not saying that evolving from wearing a mask to not wearing a mask is evolution, right? It might not be. For some people, you might have been belligerently not wearing a mask and copping a whole heap of flack and trying. And now you might say, you know what, I think I'm just going to wear a mask today and give myself a rest from that. That could be the most loving thing you do. And for others, it's going to be, I've been wearing a mask the whole time and I've been feeling suppressed and repressed in doing so. Now is the time. This feels like a safer opportunity for me to explore, choosing not to put it in, and for turning up at the storefront and saying, I have an exemption, and walking in, right, from a space of courage. Now, you can be quaking in your boots. I can guarantee you I do every time freaking walk in. I've got an exemption. I'm supposed to be a fucking man, right? Was I supposed to say that word? I'm supposed to be confident. I'm supposed to be courageous. I'm a light worker, for goodness. I'm a warrior of light. And yet here I am shaking my boots at some tin pot freaking security guard in the front of Pack and Save. But that's it. I have to accept that I'm left with residues of fear of authority from other lifetimes, which have been horrendous in many ways. Now, does that mean that I submit to authority always because I'm not willing to trigger that fear? No, of course not. But at the same time, I don't need to throw myself in the deep end and put myself into a space where I'm completely non-functional because I'm trying to go against what is too much for me. We have to work within our own boundaries. We have to work within what is sensible for us to deal with, and not to judge ourselves as not good enough because we can't do what others might be able to easily do. I look at other people who walk in, without a concern in the world, and they're not, warriors of light potentially, right? They just don't want to wear a fucking mask. No one's telling me what to do, right? It's where they're at, and fine, great. I support them full on, right? But those of us who are choosing to walk our path, no matter what it is, courageously stepping up against our resistance and challenging these programs that have been left in our field, you're to be commended, right? No matter how that is playing out for you, no matter how slowly you're going at it, no matter how trepidatiously you are trying to walk this path of showing up more fully as yourself, whether it's involving yourself in more intimate relationships with your partner, or whether it's talking more matter-of-factly with your children, or no matter whether it's standing up for your rights at the tea and coffee table at your workplace, whatever it might be, wherever you are choosing to challenge your inadequacy, what doesn't feel in alignment with you, and yet you have allowed to continue in your life because you've been too scared to challenge it in the past. That's where your edge is. That's where your growth is. That is where your joy is, no matter how uncomfortable it is, because it's in choosing to take those little steps, or perhaps those magnificent big steps, where your joy resides, where your expansion is, where your heart comes alive and you can honestly feel alive in that moment. And it's different for all of us. There is no recipe, there's no cookie cutter way that I can say, this is what you need to do, this, and this. We're all different in how we are engaging with the unique opportunity that this time and space is giving us on this planet right now, for each of us in different parts of the world, in different parts of our society. It's it's awesome.
It is awesome. And thank you, Matt, for taking us to that edge, because that's exactly where we need to go. We need to go to that edge. So,
Yeah.
and I'm also, I was going to finish up by asking you to perhaps share three things that we could do in our daily life to help, bring that grounding. You've already spoken to three things that you could do just to keep this energy of courage moving. You know, having those discussions with our intimate partners, showing up to our relationships with our children in this
Our
new way.
parents. Yeah.
And at work, you know, having the dialogue, having the conversations rather than shying away.
Mm-hmm.
So just in those three practices, call it practices, or just the way of living, we are already bringing voice and expression to what is in us.
Yeah, I think those three things are opportunities to practice. The practice for me really comes back to, you know, stopping and breathing, checking in with myself, you know, in moments before I have that conversation at the tea and coffee table. Am I grounded before I go there, or am I likely to get triggered and make a quote unquote fool of myself and do something, you know, emotional that I'm going to regret? You know, am I really in my power right now? And so for me, the practices are, you know, daily meditation, which doesn't need to be long, and it doesn't need to be sitting in lotus on a friggin', you know, and chanting Om. It's basically just checking in with yourself. You know, you can do it for a couple of minutes before you actually even get out of bed, right? You wake up, you remember what day it is, you remember what your schedule is, you remember what you've got to do, and then you take some deep breaths and you just reconnect with who you be and the intention that you want to take into your day. That's huge, right? And then potentially stopping several times through the day, whether it's you're saying a small gratitude thing before you eat, or whether you have other natural moments in your day where you can just check in and take some deep breaths and just choose to let go of stress, and just choose to let go of whatever fears are predominating your mind, and choose to let go of whatever emotionality is dominating your space, and just come back to, who am I? And you don't need to have a definitive answer of that. It's just in asking that question, you just naturally align with the who that you be beyond this personality that's trying to get everything right and follow all of the shoulds. Who am I? What, you know, what am I choosing to express here on the planet today? You know, and you know, a third really good thing to do is to journal, and whether that's once a week, once a day, or whatever, once a month even, it's to take time just to write stuff down about you know, your fears and your inadequacies, and also your choices and what your dreams, right? To write down what it is that you look forward to creating on this planet. And even though you don't know how that's going to happen, be willing to dream big, and be willing to commit it to paper, and be willing to reread before you write your journal today. Reread what you wrote in your journal at other times, flick through it, and just remind yourself of the inspiration that you have produced in the past. And remember, this is who you be. You know, don't get too caught up in the fact, oh, I didn't manage to do much yesterday, or I didn't manage to have the conversation at the tea and coffee table, or I didn't manage to really express my desires to my lover, or whatever. Don't focus on your perceived failings. Just align with what you're choosing to become. You know,
Beautiful.
It's what we need to do, because you're not going to have successful conversations and successful expressions if you don't put in the foundations, if you choose not to stay grounded and love yourself and eat well and drink plenty of water and all of those other practical things that are just important to maintain a degree of comfort in a body on a planet. And as empaths right now, remember that you are feeling so much shit that's not yours going on, so much collective fear, so much collective anger, so much vibration that is discordant at the moment and not in harmony. And be in allowance of that, and be compassionate with yourself, and do what you can. You know, take time out in nature, do self-care practices. It is can't be stated enough that is important.
Absolutely. I think that's so beautiful, Matt. You know, one of the things that I wanted to explore with you in our discussion today, which we didn't really speak to in depth, but really, we spoke to it in ways where we didn't actually name it, but this is the way of the feminine. This is the way of nurturing ourselves in the stillness, in the non-doing, in the quality of our breath, as you said, and being in nature, just that alignment with that, just serenity and peace that's accessible to us. And I would also just add the one other thing that I think that's also really beneficial in deepening the quality of the feminine energy is through dance. And dance being not following any kind of steps, but allowing the music to move you so that the dance starts to dance you. And in that space, you feel that experience of surrender, and you're moving with the flow. And yeah, it's just beautiful to keep tuning into that feminine energy that is just so potent now for us to embody.
Yeah, there are so many practices that allow you to surrender into the flow of what wants to create or express through you, and any number of those is very worthy of your investment in time.
Yeah. Okay, Matt, I think we've come to the end of our discussion here, although there's so much
For
more.
today.
There's so many little threads here that I would love to expand further, and I look forward to perhaps maybe continuing having further conversations. Yeah. I'm sure this is going to inspire other people to also want to do this, and I highly recommend it, that we start to go into dialogue and to really start to feel into what this time is helping us to move into and be.
Allow it to be a surrendered process, just like dancing.
Yeah.
You go in with an intent and you allow it to flow, and you just hold space for each other to converse and to express. It's a lost art.
It's been great dancing with you, Matt. I'm really grateful. And thank you. And oh yeah, before I complete, is there anything that you would like to share in terms of how people can find you? Your website, your Facebook page. And so what we would search you under, Matt Andrews. What's your website?
Mantara. So Mantara is the beings who work through me, a collective of beings who work with my higher self. So it's MANTARA .NZ. Yeah. So
beautiful. So that's your website.
And that's my website. And if you just click on there, you can get a beautiful MP3 free gift, stepping into your personal power, which will then get you on my email list, and you can stay in touch with whatever's going on in terms of other opportunities arising. And I think I send out a few more MP3s for free in that whatever nurturing sequence as you joined my tribe. And if you go onto Facebook, you can search me on Facebook under Matt Andrews. There's probably a million of them. I can't remember what number comes after my name, but the easiest way to find me and more of what I do in this field anyway is to look for the Bright Light Beings Facebook group, and just request to join, and I will add you in.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Matt. Real honor and a privilege, and I just thoroughly enjoyed dancing with you today.
Awesome, Deepa. Much love to all. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.